Ladies, what is the most obvious hint that you've dropped that went unnoticed by a guy? Story 1. Had this ridiculously attractive girl sit 2 seats down from me in a college writing class. Some kid sat between us. RA girl proceeds to mean girl the hell out of this kid. Next class, he sits somewhere else. She slides her books over to his seat, sits down next to me and says, "Hi, I'm your new partner." We didn't have partners in this class. After class, she asks if she can email me a paper to critique. I give her my email address. She sends me her number. I text her saying, "Here's my number too, but I think you forgot to attach the paper." Never received the paper. Following the next class, she asks me to walk her to her car. It's 11 a.m. She claims to need to get something out of the back seat and then just sort of rummages around a very clean back seat, bent at the waist, calls back that she hopes I'm enjoying the view. I sort of chuckled, oblivious. She gets out, looks at me and says, "I'm a little surprised you didn't grab my butt. Maybe next time?" Following class, she literally takes my hand and places it on her butt, looking me dead in the eye and says, "Give it a squeeze." I've met predator drones less tenacious than her. What, are you supposed to violate her on the chance she likes it? Hell nah, dude. Missed signal or not, you did the right thing at her car. Story 2. As a guy, I once had a girl climb into my bed and cuddle, with me just thinking, she must be cold. Story 3. I met a guy in New Orleans, and after a lot of texting and talking, we wound up having a second date in California. I live in Colorado, he's in Florida. He had to run out to do a few things, and when he came back, I was rolling a doobie and some lingerie out on the deck of our hotel room. He legit just said, "Hey, you ready for dinner? Get dressed so we can go." I guess the guy was hungry, not thirsty. Story 4. I told my now boyfriend that I was attracted to him. He assumed that I meant that I thought he was aesthetically attractive but not into him myself. Same boy also missed me watching an entire football game with him in a pub, leaning on him the entire time, despite me saying I had never watched football before and thought it was boring, and then walking home holding his hand as an indication of how much I liked him. The team he's supporting probably just lost the match. Not much can cheer up a man from watching his team lose. Story 5. Not a lady, but hints that I didn't pick up at the time, but later realized it was a hint. Number 1. Me and this girl watching a movie moves closer to me, puts head on shoulders, and for about 5 minutes in, she tries to hold my hand. I jumped, watching a scary movie, which I can't handle, causing our heads to hit, and she moved back to the other side. Number 2. Went on this date. Afterwards, I offered to walk her back to her house. It was a college town, so she only lived like 2 miles away. I get to her house. She offers me to come inside for a couple of drinks. I decline due to having plans with friends, and she proceeds to wait at the door for something. I didn't know what she was waiting for, so I waved, told her to have a good night, and went on my jolly way back to my place. God, thinking about how I have so many stories which just makes me sad. Story 6. To continue the trend, guy here. To offer a disclaimer here, I'm your textbook ugly duckling in terms of self-esteem versus actual attractiveness, apparently. The first year in college, I met a girl who was a friend of a friend of a friend, like 2 circles removed. She evidently had a fascination with me, and I got word back that she was joking about wanting to marry me after we hung out twice, in a group. We ended up spending more and more time together, and at one point, I offered to show her this cool little decorative Aztec calendar I got that was in my room, not thinking that, "Hey, come check out this thing in my dorm that I have to myself," had some connotations to it. We went and I showed it to her, and she was just staring at me. If memory serves, she was actually biting her lip. I then asked if there was anything else she wanted to do, like grab coffee. To my credit, I dodged a huge bullet there, but that's a very long story. I also got along great with a friend of mine, and I offered to let her stay with me during a rough patch in a living situation, and I thought she was way out of my league. So I really did take it as a joke when she told me she would suck my d for a Dr. Pepper when we went out to lunch on that first day. She had a very offbeat sense of humor, so I don't feel like it was that much of a stretch to think she was joking. As I found out later that night, she was not kidding about that. She kept her promise. Best dollar I ever spent. Fast forward 6 months and we're exchanging wedding vows. That Dr. Pepper landed me a wife. So thanks, Dr. Pepper. Ads are getting smarter. Story 7. With the guy I have now been married to for 15 years and I first started hanging out, we spent a lot of time at a friend's house with the whole group. I finally got him out to the front porch alone one night, hanging out on the couch there, and I kept finding reasons to touch him and flirt with him. I stole his watch and made him try to get it back from me. We tickled each other, another flirty goofing around. He told me after we started dating that he called a female friend later that night to ask her what she thought it meant if I was flirting with him. One night, we were at his house watching TV late, and I kept throwing hints at him. No dice. We were literally spooning on the floor by the TV, and I finally just said, "Would you like to kiss me?" He's such a sweet, wonderful man. Glad I finally got through his obliviousness. Story 8. I was at a girl's house that asked for help with homework. When I walked into her dorm room, she was in her underwear in bed and said, "Climb in, let's do homework here." And I literally said, "I think I'll do it at the desk. That way we can write easier." Story 9. I honestly don't know. Because I assume that if I'm being obvious and it floats on by, that means he's noticing it all right, but ignoring it because he's not interested. So being even more obvious is just going to be uncomfortable and embarrassing. I know Reddit likes the narrative of women can always have what they want from guys, but that's really bullshit. Some of us, like me, just really don't want to get the wrong idea. If I consider the person a good friend, I tend to brush things off as a joke, even if I have feelings for her. Best thing to do for some guys is to just go for it, unless it's obvious that they aren't into you. Those are just my 2 cents, but I'm sure many can relate. Story 10. Well, I'm a lesbian, but ladies don't always pick up on hints either. On a third date, I told my girlfriend I wasn't wearing any underwear, and she just said, I guess it's laundry day, huh? Bless her heart. That's pure. Story 11. After weeks of him staying over late, he was friends with my roommate, so we could hang out just the two of us. I gathered up my liquid courage and sat in his lap and kissed him. We did that for a while, but when I was like, let's go to my room, he asked me, why? Like with a complete poker face. So I panicked and was like, to finish the movie. The movie had ended. We both stared at the credits and then he was like, well, it's late. Can I kiss you one more time before I go? Story 12. On the first date I went on with my husband, we were sitting next to each other, really close. And I looked up at him and moved closer to his face and he said, can I help you? Story 13. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most guys aren't missing the signals, just they don't want to take it the wrong way. They don't want to be the guy who jumped to conclusions and is labeled as a creep or charged with sexual harassment, or mess with a good friendship. Story 14. Me at 10:30 p.m. after a date. Hey, do you want to come in? Him. No, I'm getting a cold sore. Me. Well, okay then. How about drinks later this week? Him. If the cold sore is gone. Well, it went away and we're still dating 6 years later. Dude was looking out for you back then. Keep him around. Story 15. Back in high school, I sent a guy pictures of my butt wearing underwear. He sent pictures back of his butt in his boxers. Totally clueless until we met up again in college and hooked up. Now we've been together for almost 4 years. I love my boyfriend, even though he missed my obvious advances 6 to 7 years ago. That is so freaking hilarious. Oh man. Story 16. I can tell you guys the time I almost lost my virginity in a pretty unexpected way. Almost. 16-year-old me, clueless to everything female. No girlfriend yet, nothing happened yet. Walking home from school, I was going to drop my bag and get my butt downtown to the skate shop, get me some new kicks with my birthday money. At the time, DC Shoes USA was all the rage. There's this girl in my year that all the guys are crazy about. She's kind of tomboyish and sporty. Let's call her Laura. As I'm walking, I hear someone call me by my name. Turn around, it's Laura. I wait for her, wondering why in the hell would she ever speak to me. Hey, X Silva, what are you up to? Hey Laura, I'm going downtown to get some new shoes at the skate shop. Oh, is it that store Big Punch? I wanted to go there too. Can I come with you? She's weirdly handsy and all smiles. I panic and say, yeah, that's the one. I guess you can come with me, yeah. So she then tells me that we just have to swing by her house so she can change and then we can go. In the elevator of her building, she tells me that her parents aren't home, all giggly. This is going miles over my head. I'm not putting 2 and 2 together at all. We get to her floor, get in the apartment. She tells me to wait in her room. I'm standing awkwardly in her bedroom looking out her window thinking, I don't want to miss the chance of getting my new sneakers. Suddenly I hear her say in this super flirty voice, Silva. I turn around. She's standing in the doorway, butt naked, doing this curved back thing, legs crossed, smiling at me. I look at her for a split second that for me lasted an eternity. I swallow a choke and I say, so, we're not going to Big Punch? Her smile instantly fades as she covers herself behind the door. A few seconds after, she comes back dressed. But then I understood what I had missed and tried to make small talk. She asked me to leave. Story 17. Not a lady, but a girl I eventually dated in high school asked me for a ride home. We get there, her parents are gone. We're hanging out in her room. She grabs my phone and puts it in her bra. When I ask for it back, she tells me to go get it. I was just confused. Then more confused when 10 minutes later, she threw it at me and told me to leave. Story 18. I had been on a few dates with this guy, and one time he was at my house and we started to hook up. Midway through, I said, wait, do you want to go in the shower with me? He proceeded to respond, no thanks. I actually just showered this morning, so that would be pretty pointless. Story 19. From a guy's perspective, I was having a casual drink with a friend of mine. I thought we were 100% platonic. I normally walked her home at the end of the night. I said something like, me, let's get you back home and to bed. Her, that's a bit forward, but all right then. Me, imagine if that actually worked on a girl. Her, yeah. Followed by an awkward silence. I was an idiot. This one hurts me because you were the one spitting game. Story 20. multiple situations with my fiance, but I guess this is the most obvious one. I was in the bedroom feeling a bit horny, so I started to put on some sexy clothes and my kimono and walked to him. He was in our living room. I slowly opened my kimono, revealing the baby doll dress, and kissed him. I want you. I want pizza. That kind of killed it for me. Don't get me wrong, I love him, but he's not great at getting subtle and not so subtle hints. To be fair, it takes a lot of force to overpower the allure of pizza. Story 21. Honestly, this one has no redemption. He's my boyfriend of like 3 years, and I love him to death. We were out at a movie theater, and as it ended, I grabbed the last of the popcorn, went for the crotch grab, and then said, "Can't wait to get home." I slapped his butt on his way to the car and kissed his neck on the way home. Clear signs. When we got home, I went to the bedroom to get into something comfy, and this guy makes popcorn. He thought I wanted more popcorn. He thought the and fondling and kissing was me convincing him to make me popcorn. What the f? Story 22. Not a lady, but when I was in Australia, an American au pair and I went out for a date. We went to an Irish bar, I'm Irish, and spent a few hours together. Fast forward about 3 to 4 days and we're out for a third date. We headed back to the apartment we were both staying in, and she said to me, "Would you like to come over to my place?" in a seductive tone. I thought she meant for more drinks and got wildly drunk. I went to her place and spent the entire night watching classic rock videos and drinking Jack Daniels until I fell asleep. That's so hilariously Irish. Story 23. Not a lady, but I'm still amazed at the obliviousness of my youth to this day. Once in college, my date and I were on the way back from a bus trip party, getting close to our drop-off point, maybe 5 minutes out. Out of nowhere, she completely drops the conversation we were having and says something along the lines of, "Shoot, I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. Didn't put the sheets back on my bed after they came out the dryer." I spent the next 5 minutes in silence trying desperately to figure out why the hell she didn't just put the sheets back on her bed when she got home. When the bus arrives and she says, "Actually, I think I'll just go home." I still shake my head at myself for that one. Story 24. Met my significant other when I was 16 and he was 17. Have a home together, 2 dogs, all that jazz. Asked if he fancied having some fun. He replied whilst winking, "What kind of fun?" I proceeded to strip and he turned to me and said, whilst looking quite sad, "I was hoping you were going to ask me to have a battle between our Dungeons & Dragons characters." Dude didn't miss the hint, just really wanted to play some D&D. Story 25. A mutual friend was teasing the guy I was into, saying that he would never get laid because he's cute but not hot. I straight out said, "That's not true. I think you're sexy as hell." He turned to me and said, "Thank you, but you wouldn't sleep with me, so, oh well." I said, "Yes, I would." And he said, "I'd sleep with you too. Thanks." Story 26. When I was 16, I worked at an auto body shop. My job was to drive customers back to their house and place of business after they dropped off their car. One time, a very attractive woman dropped off her car, so I drove her home. She flirted with me the entire time, and when we got to her house, she told me that she wanted me to see her house, which she just had remodeled. I said, "Okay," and followed her in. When we got inside, she told me that her back was itching and asked me to scratch it. I said, "Okay," and scratched her back. She then said that it wasn't helping because the itch was under her bra strap. She unhooked her bra and asked me to continue. So I reached under the back of her shirt, scratched her back where her strap used to be, then told her that I had to get back. She just stared at me. On the way back to work, it hit me that I could have gotten laid. Clueless 16-year-old. Story 27. Guy walking me home after our 6th date. "I would really like to have sex with you," I said to him. He responds, "Thank you. I would really like to have sex with you too." He then proceeds to walk me to my door, thanks me for the night with a hug, and then he walks home. I wonder if he had the worst, "oh crap," realization later that night. Story 28. I had a girl who I had a crush on who came to my dorm, took her jeans off and jumped in my bed. My thoughts? Damn, where am I going to sleep now? If that's a single bed, there's no room for me. I slept on the floor, fuming at the injustice. Found out later what she wanted. Never even crossed my mind. Story 29. Asked a guy out to a movie when I was about 15. Brought his best friend. I thought, okay, let's watch a horror movie so I can hold his hand. He told me to better hold his best friend's hand too because he thought the friend was scared. Years later, another friend told me that the guy I invited had a huge crush on me. I also kissed him on the lips once and he just thought I was saying goodbye to him like everyone else. Story 30. Girl here. On a second date, I invited a guy back to chat further and said my new silk sheets were very soft. He's into it. So we went to my place. After flirting for a half hour, he stops and says, "I gotta get going soon. It's getting late, but I want to feel your sheets before I go." I'm confused, but I go with it. We walk over to the bed and I wait for the kiss. Instead, he reaches down and pets the bed sheets, compliments how soft they are, and then walks to the door while saying we should set up another date. After he leaves, I lock the door and ponder. Maybe he wasn't into me? Maybe he's abstinent? Confusion and acceptance follow. An hour later, I get a text that simply says, "I'm an idiot." Story 31. I asked a boy I was dating if he wanted to be my boyfriend. He said yes. I thought that settled it. I found out a week later that he doesn't consider us boyfriend and girlfriend. Why? Because I asked him if he'd like to be my boyfriend, and he answered that exact question. Apparently, I was not clear on our status after. Story 32. It wasn't just one obvious hint, but throughout the entire night, I was flirting with X and he was 100% not getting it. I was touching him all night, putting my arms around his neck, brushing against his arms, putting all my attention towards him. We were with a group of friends, laughing at all his jokes. I was visiting from out of town. There wasn't enough room for everyone to sleep, so he offered me his bed. I said to him, "Oh, you can just sleep with me, I don't mind." He slept completely stiff and on his back all night despite my attempts to get closer. The next day, I did all my best flirting again, and we were all back at his place to watch a movie. I sat next to him. I kept going out of my way to touch him, resting my head on his shoulder during the movie. I think at one point I had my hand in his lap. That night we were back in his bed and I finally just made a move and kissed him. We just kissed, nothing else. We've been together for 13 years and married for 10. We joke about those 2 nights so much. He said to me he thought I was just being nice and didn't realize I liked him in that way. He had no idea. He's really shy and insecure. I'm glad I finally just made the move myself. Story 33. I said, "So, you're a wrestler? How about you show me some wrestling moves?" It was 1 a.m. We were at his place after going out drinking, and it was our second date. I was cuddling next to him on the couch, and he was the captain of the wrestling team at our college. What did he do? Proceeds to show me basic wrestling moves. Okay, so this is your stance. He's now my husband and we have a kid, so he figured it out eventually. Story 34. A girl told me that it would be a lot safer for me to spend the night with her than drive home. It's really a short walk and I can get to my car in the morning. She was very disappointed, but the truth was that I had a massive wet poop trying to explode out of my butt, which I was barely containing, and this was not an experience I wanted to share in a hotel room with a woman I had just met.